Thanks so much for joining us, Erica. Um, and and I was hoping, could you just tell us what the Good Samaritan Law is?
So the Good Samaritan Law is a law that in 2013, the Vermont Legislature passed a specific law that dealt with individuals that may call for rescue, dial 911, when they believe someone is overdosing. And the reason I'm specifically singling that out is that was the legislation that was passed in 2013 and was updated. There had been Good Samaritan laws in place prior to that, kind of in a more general setting. If you saw someone in danger and you tried to render aid and something further, some further injury happened, you couldn't be prosecuted for that injury. But in 2013 is really when the legislature modified the Vermont law to really encompass in detail the idea that you could call 911 if you are in a room or a home with someone that's overdosing and not suffer any criminal repercussions from that.
And can you talk about the effects this has and the importance on this and what you see in your work?
Well, I think obviously the importance of it was, and I testified to this, that I would take the life of someone over any prosecution of any case any day. And I think that it's easy for any prosecutor to make that decision. None of us were arguing that we should somehow maintain the right to prosecute someone who's actually trying to help someone that's overdosing. I think that from what I can tell, it's had little actual impact on the actions of people that are involved with drugs because, in part, I don't think a lot of people know about it. Obviously, I'm not entirely sure that they're thinking clearly when they're witnessing an overdose. So sometimes it's individuals that are maybe already on supervision with the Department of Corrections or already known to law enforcement, and they're just too worried that if they call, there'll be repercussions from that. But part of what the Department of Health is working to do, and what my office has been working to do over the last few years, is just make it really known that it really is something that you should call 911, bring another section of the statute deals with providing alcohol to underage folks. We've had a number of deaths over the years from young people, 18, 19 years old, that are drinking well past the point of intoxication. And then everyone's so afraid to bring them to the emergency room that they end up dying in other places. We had a case in Bennington where someone passed away literally in their yard. And because everyone was too afraid to bring them to the emergency room. So the legislature really addressed that and made it so that you're not going to be punished for calling 911, even if you had a part in how the individual ended up there.
Right. And I think we can emphasize that the importance of calling 911 so people can get treatment and so that they can survive. And in the case of alcohol and in the case of opioid overdoses, people can get medication assisted treatment in the emergency department.
Right.
Start that path to recovery. Their lives can be saved, and then their lives going forward can be saved. They can do you just know any examples of that you've seen or have you heard about?
Well, so the Bennington opiate leadership group, we talk about the specifics of cases that we're seeing and trends that we're seeing. I've had cases where I have had an individual that overdosed, and the person that called 911 was actually the person that sold him the drugs. in a normal situation, I would charge the person with uh, selling the drugs and the death resulting. But in this situation, I didn't, because there was some discussion from some other parts of the state around whether we would consider that, and I just think that I think it's a blanket rule in my world. In my head, I am always going to give that person immunity from any kind of prosecution. What we've seen is the people that are then going. What we've been trying to establish is, if someone overdoses and the person with them calls 911 and rescue responds, all too frequently that person then does not go to the emergency room, does not have any contact with uh, treatment providers, and doesn't engage in any kind of follow-up. So one of the things we've been trying to really focus on, and the leadership group has been working on, is trying to connect individuals that overdose or witness an overdose with services. So and services that don't involve law enforcement. So either support groups, peer groups. Um, Narcan is readily available. The Department of Health has a nice website that goes through all of the locations and the different resources. Um, some people that are concerned about whether they could ever inject someone, they have a nasal spray now that has shown to be pretty effective, and people are a little more okay with using a nasal spray than an injection. But do I think that any of these things have happened because of the Good Samaritan Law? I don't. I mean, I think it's an interesting quandary. I think it's more of it's a safety net. So if we're looking at these situations where we have someone who is weighing kind of whether they should call 911 or not, this is just the blanket, and maybe 20 years from now, it'll have been around long enough. Hopefully we won't have this opiate problem in 20 years, but it's really that it would take that long, I think, for the community to really, the drug using community to be really comfortable reaching out and talking with the police.
Yeah.
They assume call 911, the police are involved.
Yeah. Are there any legal liabilities that remain? I mean, can we assure people that they, can safely call 911 in these situations?
No, yeah, there are no legal liabilities that that I can think of. There's always the question of, well, if you call, I can think of scenarios where you would call 911 and then some kind of crazy thing happens after that that may not be covered by the Good Samaritan Law, but it covers really everything that has to do with just rendering aid and getting aid to that person. Some states, we never went this far. Connecticut actually had an affirmative Good Samaritan Law where you were actually required. It was an offense if you didn't call 911 or render aid to someone.
Yeah.
Those obviously never got prosecuted, so I don't think Connecticut enforces it. But for our purposes, I think it's really just getting that information out there, and it's a little bit of a leap of faith, right? Like, they have to trust the authorities that there aren't going to be any repercussions.
Right. But it sounds like it's such an important thing to do, to call 911 to get people that treatment and that life-saving treatment they need.
Just the help, just then and there, that help. And I think about it in kind of the context of, this is just one step at a time, right? It's just make the decision now to save that person's life, and don't put too much thought into it. Don't think about what comes 5 steps from now. Well, what if my mother finds out, or what if my family knows, and my boss, and what if they find out I've been here? It doesn't necessarily mean I think it's the whole cone of shame that's around addiction anyway. So it's not that folks that are addicted are ashamed that other addicts know that they're using. It's that shame of the rest of the general public, you know, my kids' friends' parents, or my boss, or my mother, or, you know, there are so many cases that I work with every day that where people are still maintaining with their family members that they're not addicts. You know, particularly if they're from a family that's never suffered with addiction. And I mean, the reality of it is, it's not we shouldn't be branding anyone a bad person because they're an addict. And so the getting past that idea that, well, if I call 911, not only might I get in criminal trouble, but then everyone will know that I'm here with an addict. And that's really unfortunate because, you know, then we're having the hard conversations with people that lose family members to something that could have been preventable or treatable.
Right. Definitely want to avoid that. Um, Thank you for sharing so much information on this law. Is there anything else you'd like to say about it?
Yeah, well, just that anyone that has any suspicion whatsoever that they may be coming in contact with someone that could have an addiction problem, um, have Narcan on hand. I can't stress enough the conversations I've even had with schools that do not have Narcan on campus as part of a nurse's kit. It's just really important. Having the Narcan and having it on hand, it's just a safety backup. It's not admitting that your school or your business has a problem. It's just have it, because why not? There's no
Right.
reason not to, and it could save a life. And then secondly, I just think that everyone, there's so many people in every community in Vermont that are all working terribly hard to try and connect people to services and get people suffering with addiction help. And anything you can do to learn more about the services available in your community, it only is a benefit to anyone that has family members dealing with this.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.